governor's disclaimer into the record. Do we have Westborough TV on?
I do not see them. They're supposed to be.
Jeff's here.
Okay, Jeff, are you ready then? Okay, then I'm going to get started.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Good evening and welcome to the January 5th meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. This is a virtual meeting, so I will read the governor's order into the record. Pursuant to Governor Baker's 12/2020 for suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Members of the public wishing to participate from their remote location are encouraged to email their questions to planning@town.westborough.ma.us. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. The meeting can be viewed on Verizon Channel 24 and Charter Channel 191 or live stream online at westboroughtv.org. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So we have a relatively short agenda. First item on the agenda is review and consideration of the subdivision plan for 228 Ruggles Street. We all received a letter from Karen Keegan, who is representing the applicant, and she is requesting an extension. I believe that it should be through March 2nd and not through our next meeting. I'm going to let Karen, well, Jim, do you have any comments on that? Jim Robbins?
Just a brief comment. Karen's letter was dated December 31st. She merely requested in that letter that we extend the discussion of the preliminary plan to our next meeting. And as you probably know, we have an extension through the 21st, so that would have been appropriate. My understanding now, and I would like to have Karen explain that for the record since we are live now in the meeting. Her request is now for a later further extension, which is fine by me because we still need some additional information. So I'd ask that Karen please explain her rationale for additional time period.
Sure, Karen Keegan at GBI. I'd like to ask for a request for an extension until March 2nd. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with Fred Lombardo, and we need to extend that road a little bit further to meet the requirements of the 200-foot building setback. So I think I should be able to get that work done, plus meet with him again, because there's a timing issue between me getting the work done and meeting with him. And it's just kind of a long process, I guess you could say. And hopefully by March 2nd, I should be able to get it approved with him and get ready for you for the meeting with the planning board. So I'm asking for a request for an extension till the 2nd of March.
I have a question, Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman, through you. So Karen, you said 200 foot, that's the frontage. You mean the width, you mean the lot width?
The width, I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, the building setback, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So your request for extension, because this is being recorded and minutes are being taken, is to allow additional time to design compliance with the requirement for minimum lot width for one of the lots.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion? I'll make the motion to extend the review of the preliminary subdivision plan for Rugged Trail with 228 Rugged Street through our meeting of March 2nd, 2021.
Second that, Mark.
Okay, any discussion of the motion? Okay, all those in favor, I'll do a roll call vote. Jim Ball,
Yes.
Tim Taylor,
Yes.
Tim Paris,
Yes.
Hazel,
yes,
and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 in favor. Thank you, Karen. We'll see you
Thank you.
on or before March. We extended it through, so if you're ready before, we can see if we can
Certainly
get
me.
you on. Okay.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Next item on the agenda is West Park Drive Extension. I had requested an additional peer review traffic study of the Flanders Road section of Flanders Road from Connector Road to East Main Street. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim to explain. Jim Robbins, if you want to explain this, and then we can, if anybody has questions for Jeff Bandini from McMahon, we can ask. Okay.
Sure,
Jim
thank you.
Robbins, why don't you start?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you may recall, the West Park Drive industrial subdivision requires a traffic study. We received a traffic study from the applicant's traffic engineer. It did not include the intersection of Flanders Road and East Main Street. And as you know, with the opening of West Park Drive to Flanders Road, it will be possible now for commuters or local traffic to exit Flanders Road and proceed to East Main Street along Old Flanders Road. That being the case, wisely so, Chairman Silverberg as well as other members of the board asked that that intersection be considered, as well as traffic along Old West Main Street, Old Flanders Road. And the applicant, Caruth Capital, assented. They said, sure, fine. So we asked our peer reviewer, McMahon Associates, who is going to be doing a review of the traffic study provided, to include that as an additional scope of services as a project associated with the West Park Drive subdivision, but separately, so that we could have continuity between the two studies. In other words, not have to go out to bid for another traffic consultant. And you have in front of you a new scope of services for $6,100 dated the 30th of December, 2020, to conduct that study. That study, if you read the scope, would be folded into the report back to the planning board for the entire subdivision. So even though there'd be two separate traffic reports, they would be integrated in their final product as submitted to the board. And our consultant, McMahon Associates, will make 2 appearances in front of the planning board to discuss their findings. Any additional appearances would require an additional fee, but this is a small scope of services, only $6,100. It does require your separate approval, and I sent you an email about an hour ago with a new revised motion. If you don't have it, I have it. I can read it to the board, but you should have it if you're looking at your email. I have a new revised motion for the board.
Any questions for Jim Robbins? Hazel, go ahead.
my question has to do with this scope cover, is there any discussion about putting in a traffic light at that intersection of East Main and Flanders Road, what the effect would be for, or, you know, pro or con on that? Because
well, I think the study will make recommendations based upon the projected traffic impact, but they won't cover design. That would be a separate cost.
right, okay.
I'll actually ask Jeff Bandini if I'm correct on that, though.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, for the record, Jeff Bandini with McMahon Associates. Yeah, that's correct. So essentially what the extra $6,100 fee would do would be to collect traffic counts along Old Flanders and East Main. And then again, like Mr. Robbins said, kind of tie that in with the West Park Drive extension and some of the assumptions that were made as part of that report. So it's kind of grouping all of the material together and providing some reliance on new data. And then again, making recommendations as to, you know, any sort of improvements that could be installed along that roadway to mitigate any sort of additional traffic from the West Park Drive extension and the signal, related to that project. As you mentioned, yes, design, if we were to determine if a signal or any sort of other intersection treatment would be warranted there, certainly we would make those recommendations in the study. That would be included. But any sort of like design elements, whether that be geometric or traffic signal improvements, would be covered under a future design fee for that particular location.
Okay. Could I just ask one question? I'm wondering whether this might also include, if you can find the information on whether there might be any funding available for an intersection of that type. It's a real problem intersection. I don't know whether there might be state or county funding available. If you could find any information on that, that I think would be of huge help.
Certainly, there's programs.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, did you want to answer that, or do you want me?
No, well, I was just going to comment that now that the town has adopted complete streets, that may help us be eligible for funding for this. But I was going to ask Jim Robbins to comment. But Jeff, if you have any information on that, I'll let you go first, and then I'm sure Jim can expand on it.
Yeah, so there's certainly a number of programs that are available for, sort of intersection improvements that are included as part of, the state. We could use different programs such as the, Chapter 90 funds, Complete Streets, as you mentioned. Mass Works has a program that you can provide extra funding. And then there's always the Mass DOT TIP Transportation Improvement Program. That program typically takes a little bit longer to get on in the queue because, the district already has like a list of projects that they're pursuing as we move forward. So if it's something that the town wanted to look into in a shorter time frame, there's certainly other programs that we could look into.
Jim Robbins, do you have any comments on that?
I have nothing further to add. I was simply going to mention Chapter 90 and the Complete Streets. It's encouraging to hear that Jeff mentioned supplemental funds through the Mass Works program. I'd be curious to see how this one would apply, since there'd be no additional jobs created, but I'm all ears onto any of this.
Yeah, certainly that's an interesting point. I'm wondering if we could somehow tie that into any sort of development that would be, going in and as a result of the West Park Drive extension. But you're right, that's certainly a little bit more of a Hail Mary, if you will, in terms of, we've represented a lot of clients that applied for Mass Works grants that didn't get them. So it's kind of a long shot, but again, it is a funding source that we could at least investigate as part of this.
That's it. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Yep.
Any other questions for the board about this study? Okay, I just like to comment. I think it's an important addition. I think this section of Flanders Road potentially going to see some impact from this extension, from the West Park Drive extension. And I just wanted to be sure that, that because it's a very residential stretch of road, that the residents and citizens understand the impact of this project, and that we're looking towards the future as far as solving any problems that arise. And that's really all I had to say. I'm just glad we're able to add this. I'm glad the applicant's willing to pay for it, and I'm looking forward to hearing the results of this study. So with that said, do we have a motion? Anybody want to make that motion? Jim Ball?
I can make that, Mark, if you like. I move that the planning board approve the scope of services for McMahon and Associates entitled McMahon Associates Westborough Flanders Road Evaluation, project number Y20977.1P, dated 12/28/20, to complete the Flanders Road traffic peer review as associated with the West Park Drive Extension definitive subdivision plan.
Second.
Okay, Hazel seconded. Any discussion of the motion? Okay, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call again. Hazel?
Yes.
Tim Paris?
Yes.
Tim Kaler?
Yes.
Jim Ball?
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate you, reaching out to us, to help the town out with this project.
We look forward to working with you, Jeff, and your staff. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
just so you know, Jeff, because I'm just kind of easing back into work after my knee surgery.
Yep.
If you send emails, I'm trying to recover some of the emails of the last month, but if you sent me something prior to last week, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Send it to me again, and I'll be happy to help in getting any additional data you need for your research.
Sounds great. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be talking to you soon, I'm sure.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
So, Jim, do you want to give the master plan update since?
Sure. I actually have a couple things, a master plan update, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the Mass Works and West Park Drive. So as you know, the master plan study is entering its second phase of development. All of the baseline reports have been accepted and distributed, and if anyone wants to know what we found in the first phase of the master plan called Westborough Explores, that is available on the town website through the master plan link. So please visit that, and you can see the 9 areas of concentration that we've been discussing and what each of the subgroups has reported out. During this next phase, our consultants, VHB, is going to be proposing recommendations to address the issues that were identified in the first phase of the study. We're going to be having a public meeting later this month. Information will follow on that, and we will post that online. We're just now discussing that. I know Hazel is a member of the leadership team along with myself and Lester Hensley, and we've been discussing that via email. I'm trying to catch up on that in the last couple of days. I don't know if Hazel has anything to add about the first public meeting.
As far as I know, I think we have it tentatively scheduled for the 27th at 6:30 was the date I have seen so far. So everybody put that on their calendar tentatively, at least at the moment. Other than that, I know we have a leadership meeting tomorrow afternoon, and whether more information will come out after that. I don't think all the committees have handed in their review of the materials that are on the website, but that's due by the 18th, I believe. And people are beginning to work on that. So we are moving ahead sort of as fast as we can at this point. But I think we're getting a lot of feedback from the community and from the various subcommittees on recommendations that at least at the beginning phase can be looked at. That's all I have.
Any questions from the board? All right, Jim, you had some comments about the walk-up drive.
Sure, MassWorks. So our MassWorks grant, as you know, we received $2.1 million from the state through the MassWorks program. We submitted our initial contract for the state to review. We just got it back today, which was really quick. I didn't expect it back for a couple months, but we just got it back today. Christy and I are reviewing it, and probably we'll send it back to them next week. That will allow us to tell Caruth they can bid the work once we have a subdivision approval. Obviously, we have to approve the definitive subdivision before the work can be bid. The MassWorks program money, of course, only funds the work in the public way and public elements associated with the bike trail. So we're talking about the new intersection of Flanders Road, the dedicated right-hand turn lane from from Flanders Road to West Park Drive, and from West Park Drive onto Flanders Road. The signal itself, of course, crosswalks and pedestrian phasing, and then the bike trail. Those are the elements that are associated with the MassWorks program. And I don't know if any of you, I know Mark has said that he's been out there, but other than Mark, I don't know if anyone has been out to West Park Drive, but the new bike trail is all striped on the existing West Park Drive. It's very nice. Caruth did a great job at getting that done. It's been out there probably now a month and a half or more. End of November, I think it was done, maybe mid-November it was done. So there's already a bike lane striped down West Park Drive. When you get down to the bottom of the hill where West Park terminates, the new bike trail will leave the right-of-way and go cross-country. So the bike trail will leave the pavement and it will have its own separate right-of-way and then rejoin the West Park Drive at its new intersection at Flanders Road.
Okay, any questions? All right, we had a couple other things that we needed to discuss. We had 12:15 meeting minutes and we needed to talk about the planning board dates. I'm wondering if we should wait for Kristen to get back to talk about the planning board dates, because she seems to have, I'm not sure if Destiny is up to speed on the conflicts that we have.
I am not up to speed on that.
All right. Why don't we put that off till next meeting? I don't think we have any conflicts coming up in the near future, but we do have a couple of meetings that we may have to discuss moving because of elections. So for now, our next meeting is the 19th at 6:30, and Kristen will be back at that one, and we can work with her on which dates are conflicting. Any objections to that? All right. The minutes, Jim Ball, I'll let you do the minutes.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. Everyone received, I think, and then received a slightly updated copy of the December 15th minutes from Kristen a couple weeks back. Any questions on those minutes since that time? I would move then that we take a vote to approve those minutes from the December 15th, 2020 Planning Board meeting.
Second.
Okay, Hazel seconded. All those in favor, we'll do a roll call again. Hazel?
Yes.
Tim Paris?
Yes.
Tim Kaler?
Yes.
Jim Ball?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that is approved 5-0. Jim Robbins, is there anything else I don't see anything else on the agenda.
No, they just so you can be keeping things on your radar. At our next meeting, we're going to have a public hearing for West Park Drive subdivision, definitive subdivision plan. That'll be the opening of the public hearing. We probably won't have all the information or comments from town departments. I've only received one departmental comment so far. So we'll probably be continuing that public hearing. Also in the, not in the too distant future, but in the future, today I sent around a public announcement, which is an advertisement of an application for 1400 West Park Drive for Partners Care, Partners Healthcare, which is Brigham's Hospital, who are proposing to have a new healthcare facility with day surgery at 1400 West Park Drive. That'll be right next to the Olympus site. That will require a site plan review from the planning board. Notice was published in the newspaper today. It will also be online. The planning board has no role in this. This is for the Mass Department of Public Health to review their application. If their application is approved, then they will move forward. The reason why they have to approve to apply rather to the Mass Department of Public Health is because any hospital, because this is considered a hospital since it has surgery and ambulatory care, has to be approved by the state before they can make application at the local level. So I would say it's going to be a couple months before we see anything, but just so you're keeping that in the back of your mind and you know where it is, it's on West Park Drive right next to the Olympus site.
Jim, do you know if they're leasing that land?
I think they're purchasing it.
Okay, and do we know if they're a nonprofit?
They are a nonprofit.
Okay, so
We're not
I'm
beginning
going to
to-
have some questions about tax revenue on that.
Exactly. But
Okay.
jobs, of course, are good because jobs create spending locally.
Right. All right. Well, we'll obviously get into that further at a future meeting.
Mark, quick question. I'm referring to Jim. Do you remember? I can't remember in the past when they announced it. Did they have an estimate on jobs?
220 plus.
Okay, that's a lot of jobs.
Yeah, the number in the advertisement in the application was actually 223. But when you get to that specific, it's always probably, give or take a dozen, but you never know.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. I had one other issue, but I'm not sure, Jim, is there anything else?
I have nothing further, thank you.
Okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, Friday is the last day to pull papers, and we do have an opening on the planning board. If anybody watching or if anybody here knows of anybody interested, I believe we did have one candidate pull papers. I haven't heard from him, and plan on reaching out to him to see if he has questions about the board or the processes. But if anybody else is interested in it and wants more information about what's involved or the time commitment or our duties or any of that, please reach out to me, or I'm sure Jim Robbins would be available as well. But I'd be happy to talk to anybody about the commitment and the joy that I have serving in this position. I would also like the board to consider, I guess I'm asking for feedback from everybody on their experiences in their first, year of service. I think we should have a more formal onboarding process. I remember a long time ago, 13 years ago when I joined it was a big learning curve. And Tim Kaler, maybe you have comments on this because you're the newest member, but I'm still learning, and I don't think that ever ends in this position. But I do think it would be good for us to have some sort of official onboarding process, or packet of information, or something more than just, well, what are your questions, and we'll answer them as we go. And I'd like to maybe formalize that process a little more to make the transition for a new member easier. So I guess if you could start thinking about that. I think we have, when's the election? Is that first week in March?
I think so.
So we just extended that rugged trails to March 2nd, and we may not meet on March 2nd. So we'll have to look at that again. But anyway, we have a little time to come up with this onboarding process. And, I'm sure Jim, you've onboarded a lot more people than.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Mark. And the learning curve is steep, and I appreciate Tim Kaler, who's going through this right now. Tim and I actually corresponded today about talking about commercial projects and site plan review. And there should be a more formal process for that. The Citizen Planners Training Collaborative, CPTC, every once in a while I send out an announcement. That's actually a state organization that does onboarding and planning board member education. And the way that they do that is they have planners such as myself come and do a session on specific responsibilities. I did one last year in Worcester at Central Mass Regional Planning about grants that are available from the state and economic developments requirements, just specifically economic development. But that's something that board members can avail themselves to so that they understand what a site plan review is, how to look at a set of plans, how to review a set of plans, what a subdivision approval is, how to review a subdivision plan, what a special permit is, et cetera. And zoning, which is probably the most difficult of all subjects to understand, is also covered. But those are certainly something that I can do locally with each board member. And you're right, Mark, it has been, well, when it comes up, I'll go over it with you. That's how we've done it instead of doing a formal process. I have two thoughts about that. One is a formal training session where you cover everything from site plan review to subdivision approval and special permits can be overwhelming and can be confusing because a lot of times the regulations cross over and there's a lot of cross-pollination there. But it is a good overview to start with. Taking things on their face in terms of the particular permit that's required, say a site plan review or subdivision approval, I think would probably be a better approach to do it in depth. So that if you had a whole package just on subdivision approval, a whole package just on site plan approval, a whole package on special permits and zoning, I think that would be a productive way to approach it.
So just to give credit where credit is due, Lester, Lester Hensley was the one who suggested this to me, and I think it's a great idea. So I'm hoping the board feels the same about it. Appreciate your comment, your initial reaction to this, and hopefully we can put together something, at least an introductory kind of session or document or whatever it may be that will help somebody new to the board acclimate to the position.
Mark, comment or question?
Jim.
To Jim Robbins. Jim, does that planning, the state association seems like a good place for that to happen. Do you know if they have any on-demand videos where they could have training videos that are like 30 minutes pop where you can just jump in and it would be on these different topics? I know for the board at the bank, there is a number of videos from the Community Bankers Association about board responsibilities and things like that that you can watch. And so I wonder, an association seems like a place that could create those type of things.
Yeah, they have, I'm at the website, Jim, and they have on-demand training and online training. I haven't explored it enough to see if it's free or what exactly is available. So it looks like something. Yes, I think it's something I'll be exploring over the next few weeks in my spare time.
Yeah. So the Citizen Planners Training Collaborative is a really good resource, and the videos that they have online are mostly free. They used to have, and I say used to, pre-COVID, they had a weekend training session twice a year, which was 8 hours on a Saturday. So you had to be willing to give up your Saturday, where 4 or 5 professional planners would come in, and one would cover subdivision, one would cover zoning, one would cover special permits, et cetera. And that's an intense training. I've highly recommended that. We used to give that to all the planning board members many years ago. When I first started here 20 plus years ago, we used to get participation in that, but we haven't probably in the last 15 years or so. So I stopped doing that every once in a while. I know I still annually put it in your package, but it does require a commitment of a full day. It comes up again in the spring, so it'll be coming up again in either March or April. And I'll be certain to keep you informed.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
I was just going to make a comment, Mr. Chair, that I have been looking for. I guess I've in past professional lives have put together a few ramp plans and kind of was thinking about that and embracing this role. So you've all been terrific. The resources have been there. I haven't felt deficit, but I haven't felt proactively like I was ticking off the assignments. I've drilled into the zoning regulations and done some reading. So I would offer, if there's old documentation you would like me to vet or to meet with one or more of you offline, just to put together an outline for a ramp plan, I'd be happy to do that and be a guinea pig to, take self-directed training, as Jim Ball mentioned, or other things. The other point, as Jim mentioned, that I was exchanging with him today, for me, I like to see things in sort of an application. So understanding the process, for example, for tracking the Mass General Brigham project from the beginning and thinking about it, that isn't necessarily conducive to a ramp over, a 6 to 8 week period, but it can be a useful way to track what you've learned and apply it to a project as it moves through the cycle. So that was just an idea that we had.
I don't expect this to take somebody from, 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. I think it's really more to introduce people, a new member to some of the terminology that's used, the difference between site plan review and special permit, what are subdivision regulations and how are they applied, just general information that, most citizens probably don't have awareness of or don't come in contact with. Hopefully somebody who's interested in running has done some of that, or is somewhat more versed in that than, somebody who's, the most people. I just think it would be beneficial for us to give new members some structured support.
I agree. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. Even if it's just a checklist of resources to review,
right?
And then a person on the board or different people on the board to touch base after you've completed whatever reading and review, just to ask questions, about that. And that would be sufficient, or that would be a start. So
right.
I'd be happy to do, to put the list together or interview people about what that list is, or take an old document, whatever, as a starting place.
Great. All right.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I'm eager to greet a new member. I'm going to miss Tim whenever, his term does end.
Yes.
Hopefully he'll still stay in touch and lend us his wisdom as needed. So regardless, is there any other business?
I had one more item for the group just as an update. So the Climate Action Plan Task Force met last night. You may recall the briefing we did for all of you. I think it was in November. Appreciated the time there. As some of you may be aware, the state has issued a lot of legislation and updates around climate and climate change pursuant to the governor's net zero and 2050 goal. We have a new clean energy and climate plan that was dropped on the 30th of December. A Massachusetts decarbonization roadmap report of 300 pages. A lot of changes in the goal setting for emissions limits and reporting. So the action by the Climate Action Plan Task Force was to defer the delivery of our draft report by 1 month. So when we last met with you, you may not remember, but our goal was to provide a draft to the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, Finance Advisory Committee on February 9th. We've moved that back to March 9th. And the reason is an effort to digest the information that's been forthcoming to the state, because we think that it's very important that the Climate Action Plan for Westborough align with what the state goals are, state programs, et cetera. The more specific point is I may call on one or more of you just to review sections that I'm working on building electrification and building efficiency, and maybe Fred Leonardo. So just even before the complete draft is done, we want to make sure that all of you are kind of aware of what's there and that we've got the right input by the body of experts in town. So Tim Paris is going to review the draft for some of the work that I'm putting together, and we'll also extend a review to any of you that would like to take a look at it. I know everybody's got a lot on their plate, but so, a few pages of review about what we see supporting the goals for particularly replacing fossil fuels and building structures, ratings on energy efficiency and building structures. There is a number of elements of the Clean Energy and Climate Plan relating to building codes and stretch energy code, and moving that through the cycle. So when I have more details, I'll provide them, but there's a lot of impact on what the state has just released with regard to building and development. So I just thought I'd take a minute to let you know that's what we're seeing. That's all.
Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
Any other business? Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I can second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Hazel, you got to speak, I think, just being recorded.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
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 All right, that's 5-0, yes. Thank you so much. Have a good night, okay?
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Destiny. Thank you, Destiny.
Here.
Jim Robbins. I'll give you a call after we leave the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Bye.